And Anand, I'll be recording today's session also.
No, man, sure. So, I am on a mobile device. So, I'm wondering how I'm going to check chat because I did see a chat message pop up. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, cool. Got it. It's good.
So
I can
now
see
you're
it.
going to log in from laptop.
No. I can see it now. That's fine.
But logging in from laptop will be a better option, no, Anand?
No, because my laptop camera is busted.
Okay.
I mean, it works, but it looks like a horror movie with like flickering. I don't want to freak out like some school students. Yeah, chat's working fine.
Yeah.
Are we going to take a little time?
Sorry, Anand?
Are we going to take a little time?
No,
Like 5 minutes?
actually, Amin sir is very punctual until now.
Okay.
This is the first time it has crossed 4 and he has not joined.
No
Normally,
problem.
he comes.
I'm just going to like go off camera for like 30
Okay,
seconds.
sure.
Yeah? Hey, Dhruv, come here, one minute. 1 minute.
Until then, I think we can give instruction to the students here.
Yeah, go ahead, miss.
Students, in today's session, after the welcome address by Amin sir, Mr. Abdul Rahman will ask few questions to Mr. Anand Ramachandran. And then 15 students have been selected for asking questions. So they'll ask questions directly to him, and the rest will post questions in the chat box. No unnecessary messages in that. So we need only the questions in the chat box, so it will be very easy for us to read and tell the questions. Clear? So avoid chatting in that, and please mute your mics to avoid the disturbance. So hope you all understood the instructions, and so over to you.
Yeah, boys, the chatting box will start maybe like 4:30 or 4:40, like that. Don't use before that, because you will lose. If you post any questions, you will lose it. So after the introduction, my questions and discussion and everything, in the end we will start the questions for the students. So don't use the chat box until 4:30 or 4:40. We can start by 4:40 the questions. Miss, and what is the Rita Miss? What is the status of Amin sir? We cannot hear you, Miss.
Sir, actually, I have texted him. I didn't get any reply from him. I'm just texting even ma'am, sir, to find out.
Yeah, it will be better to give a call to him.
Call. Okay, fine, sir. Let me try a call. Okay.
In the meantime, Anand, how is Arvind doing, Anand?
It's good, man.
And he's partnering with Kishore, is it?
Yeah, they have a brand consulting partnership with them.
Okay.
So what kind of like regular classes are happening now, like online? Is it?
Yeah, online regular classes. Whatever is being taught in class, we have 30 minutes period sessions. Just converted into online. The teacher will talk to them and use the tools to make them understand.
And like a full day of school?
Like it starts from morning 10 because of Ramadan. Otherwise, it will start earlier. 10 to 11, 12, 1, 3, 4. It goes till 4. In between gap is there.
Okay.
So, Miss, let's
I
start.
think we will start. So
Yeah.
yes, you must start with the introduction because I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe he might be busy somewhere.
Okay, boys, let me welcome Mr. Anand Ramachandran. He is a game designer with over 15 years of experience making video games. He's worked at Zynga, Tiny Mogul Games, Hike Messenger, and Byju's, making over 30 games including shooters, racing games, hidden object games, cricket games, puzzle games, quiz games, and more. More recently, he worked on the Disney Byju's Learning Games app for kids, which included popular characters from Disney movies like Frozen, Cars, Toy Story, The Lion King, and more. Anand still enjoys playing video games, reading comics, and watching animated shows. And here we welcome Mr. Anand. Over to you.
Over to me. Oh, hey, thanks for having me. I don't know what to say. I thought you guys are going to ask me questions and I need to answer them.
We will have a 2-minute session and then we will go ahead with the questions.
We need to know more about yourself in your own words, sir.
I told you all about myself, right? I don't know what brand, but I've been making games, continue to make games right now. I currently run a studio called Big Fat Phoenix Interactive. We're looking up to see how we can use games to get into learning processes like education, skill building, and stuff. So we're making like video games which you play and then you get skills which can help you and in various aspects of life.
Anand, volume if you can just take care.
Sorry, I'll just take closer to the mic. Is this
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we are kind of doing a bunch of things where we're building games, which if you play these games, they'll help you hopefully build skills which will benefit you later on in life and in your career. We're looking at how can we use video games to help school kids build useful skills. So that's what we're doing right now. I've been making games now for many years and playing games for like many years. So it's an area of interest, and I'm lucky enough that I'm able to have that as a profession. So.
Yes, Anand. So we'll start with the question session. And the first question is, Anand, how are video games made exactly?
Wow, okay. How are video games made? Video games are made just like any other piece of software. So you have a bunch of, teams that come together typically to make games. There are some games which are made by single people working for a long time, but most video games are made by teams, right? For example, let's just look at, if you guys could type into the chat box, somebody could type into the chat box some video game which you know or which you like, then we'll talk about how that game was made, right? Might be interesting to work through examples.
Yes, boys.
So you've got Fortnite, PUBG,
right? Okay, let's talk about PUBG or Fortnite, right? If you look at how PUBG was made, there are different aspects to PUBG, right? One is the rules of the game. Like PUBG has rules, right? There are so many players. Whoever is the last player alive wins the game. The field starts, the arena starts getting smaller after particular units of time. These are the types of weapons you have. These are the kinds of vehicles that you can ride, right? So those are the rules of the game.
Just a minute, Anand. Boys, are you able to hear Anand clearly?
Yes, sir. It's little low, sir. That's
Okay, just adjust with the volume and pay attention, okay?
I'll try to get closer to the mic, but then you guys are going to see my face like really huge and disturbing. But so, like if you look at PUBG, right, the game has rules, right? There are rules. If you explain how to play PUBG to someone, the game has rules. It has so many.
Sir, Free Fire.
Sorry, yeah. Let's
Free Fire.
We'll take some example, right? Free Fire, PUBG, and Fortnite are all similar games in terms of being battle royale games, right? and they have differences, but at their core they're kind of similar. So if you take it like Free Fire, I am not familiar. I have not played Free Fire, so I'm not familiar with it. But with PUBG, you have rules, right? There are so many players. If you shoot a player, that player is eliminated. The circle keeps getting smaller and smaller. You need the last player to stay alive wins the game. You can party up. You can ride a vehicle. You can shoot from a vehicle. You can pick up loot. There's just a bunch of stuff around the rules of the game, right? Those are made by what is called a game designer. Game designers make the rules for a game. Once the game designer has kind of come up with the rules and says, okay, this is the kind of game we want, right? Then it goes to different departments. Then it goes to engineering, which are the programmers who write the code to make it happen, right? Somebody needs to write the programming to actually make the game work and to run on a mobile device or on a PC or console, depending on where you're playing it. So you have the programmers who actually write the code to make the game work. Then there is the art department. There are people who make the art and the animations, all of that cosmetics that you buy in PUBG. Like what does a car look like in this game? What do people? If you look at Fortnite or you look at Free Fire or you look at PUBG, they look pretty different, right? So there's some art director who has looked at it and said, hey, let's go with an art style that's realistic, or let's make something look bright and colorful. So they kind of decide on that and design what the game looks like, which is the art and animation department. Then you have the guys who do the sounds. There are sounds. There's a gunfire sound. There are vehicle sounds. There's sounds when you reload a gun, it makes a sound. When the game gets over, when you launch the game, there are sounds. So there are a whole bunch of sounds, right? Background music. So there are sound designers. Then there are the other tasks, like there are producers who make the game. There are producers are the guys who get things done, right? They're the ones who kind of make sure that everything's on track. They make sure that everything's on schedule. Something goes wrong. Let's say the programmer's working and the computer is not working. Producer's job is to make sure that it gets fixed, call up the repair guys, get a new computer and stuff like that. So there are producers who look into scheduling and tasks and organizing the whole thing. Because when you're programming a complex game like PUBG, there'll be like 1,000 tasks that the programmer needs to do. I need to get the gun to work. I need to get I don't know if you guys have learned any kind of programming or anything, right? But if you know how code works, you know that you need to write code to perform a particular task. In a game like PUBG, can you imagine the number of tasks that are there? You need to understand how vehicles work, how do guns work, how does movement work. When the player presses forward, how does the player move? How fast is it? How many units of the board do they cover in a second? What is the movement speed? Right? How many hit points does a character have? What is the damage caused by a gun? So designers and programmers have to kind of all come together and put down all of this and make it work. So somebody needs to track all of this. Did you forget something? If some of us, when we have even 10 things to do, we forget one of them, right? So producer is the person who makes sure that people are not forgetting and things are getting done, right? So you have, just to recap, you have game design, you have programming, you have art and animation, you have sound, you have production, and on top of that, you have quality assurance. These are the people who test the game, make sure that it's working properly, test for bugs, then get back and tell the programmers and the designers, hey, this is not working, or this weapon is OP and it's too powerful, the game balance is not good. If you get into a jeep and you go to this place, you're not able to get out, there's a bug, it's not working properly. So the QA guys, quality assurance, plays the game repeatedly and make sure that everything is working properly. Then you have also the business guys, right, who go out there and market the game, they sell it, they come up with advertising, they kind of tell promotions, they kind of run sales on the game, they make sure that the game is commercially successful. So these are the various aspects to developing a game. Something like PUBG is actually a very large production effort. That's a complex game. It's a very deep and complex game. So games like that typically have teams of anywhere between 30 to 100 people who will be working on a game like PUBG. But smaller games tend to have sometimes smaller teams. And in very small teams, sometimes many of those things will be done by the same person. Very often the same person will be the game designer and the programmer and the artist, right? There are games in which only one person does all of it. But all those tasks anyway need to be done. Sometimes in larger, more complex games, that is a team of people in smaller or more simpler games and smaller teams, a single person may perform more than one role. But that's pretty much how games are developed. Any game.
Okay, Anand. And what kinds of careers are there in the games industry?
So, like I said, right, like there are many kinds of careers depending on what talent you have. If you're good at programming, then you can be a game programmer or a game developer, right? So there are programming jobs, and there are many kinds of programmers also, right? It's not just programming; it's like one thing. There are gameplay programmers, there are physics programmers, there are AI programmers. For instance, if you have when you're playing PUBG, if you're going up against bots, somebody has to write how does that bot know what to do, when to shoot, when to take cover, when to kind of throw a grenade. So somebody needs to tell the artificial intelligence of the bot what it needs to do. So there are AI programmers, there are graphics programmers, there are network programmers. There is sometimes just one programmer just to handle the network code. Because when you're playing PUBG, just imagine if there's a lag between what is happening when you shoot someone and the other person is like moved away. If there's lag, then your shot, you will register a hit, but that person's server will register a miss, right? So you have to make sure that someone's writing the code to make sure that the network stuff is performing properly. So there are lots of different types of programming jobs. Then if you're good at art, you're interested in drawing and that kind of thing, you can get into the art side of things. You can be a game artist, you can be an animator, character design. There's lots of exciting jobs in game art. If you're good at writing stories, if you're good with creative storytelling, you can be a game writer. You can be the person who develops the story for the game, who writes all the text and the dialogue and all of that. Then there's also game design, of course. Game design is a discipline that brings together many different skills. If you are good at logical reasoning, storytelling, if you have some flair for some amount of math. Not all game designers require math, but many kinds of game designers require math. So game design is another area that you can get into. Game designers are the people who kind of come up with the ideas and design the rules and stuff for the games. You could work as if you like music and playing an instrument or composing music or songs, you can be a sound designer or a music composer for a game. You could work in. Then there are the jobs like game production. If you want to be a producer, if you're the type of person who's very organized and systematic, and many of you might be very systematic in your studies. You may be people who kind of maintain lists and exactly how much you've covered in your portion and how much you have not covered and what is left and how long it will take, and you're good at planning and all of that. Then you might make a good producer. If you're good with business, then you can just run the business guys are always really important. So you could be the person who takes care of the business, making sure that it's profitable, making sure that the game is making money and is successful. Sales and marketing, you could be any of those things. So the thing is, it does not mean you have to know programming or you have to know this to work in games. Games has opportunities for people who are good at programming, people who are good at math, people who are good at language, people who are good at art. A wide variety of skills can help you get some job or the other working in games.
Okay. What are the skills I need to learn to make my own games or get a job in the games industry, Anand?
So in terms of skills, was that a hoot of joy? Was it a vehicle starting? Okay. So the thing that the skills that you could work on, like pretty much any skill, right? But you have to start developing your skill. If you're good at math and you're interested in math is a very, very good skill to have for a wide variety of game jobs. So math is a good skill. If you learn math and you also know how to use a spreadsheet, Excel is a really, really good skill to have for game professionals. Excel is useful for game designers, programmers, producers, even artists. We do all our tracking and stuff through Excel. So those are good skills to have for a game designer. Also logical thinking, right? If you know how to break down something logically and stuff, those are skills which you would work on. Puzzle solving. In terms of other things, if you're programming, of course, is a known thing. If you can learn how to write code, it would be useful if you could learn get some expertise with specific game engines like Unity or Game Maker or Unreal, all of those are available to download and try. And student licenses are free. So if you could, try messing around with those things and seeing how that works, and any sort of programming at all is a good skill to have. If you're good at art, then learn to draw, learn to animate, learn to do 3D modeling. Like there's 3D animation and graphic software like 3D Studio Max or Maya. If you could pick up some of those skills, art and animation are very good skills to develop. Apart from that, if you're good at storytelling, then you could start writing your own stories, learn how to, write well. That's a skill that could get you a thing in the games industry. So those are specific skills that people could potentially focus on if you want to kind of get started on games.
Okay, Anand, we have Sean Bout with us. Sean,
Hey, world famous Sean Bout.
how are you, Sean? Put your mic
Oh,
on.
I'm good. Sorry, I didn't realize my camera was on.
What sort of a software engineer are you if you don't know if your mic is on or not?
I know my mic was muted because I wanted it muted, but my camera was not switched off. Sorry, please carry on, guys. Don't let me be in
No,
an
we
interruption.
wanted a question from you, Sean.
Sean, you would be happy to
Yeah.
know that on an Apple device. Status.
Don't say this in front of young, impressionable children.
Yes.
Okay, Sean, your question for Anand, please.
What are you doing on an Apple device?
No, I have no questions. It's all up to the kids today. Okay, so let them go ahead.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Sean.
Take care.
Okay, boys, we need to take a photo of all of you. Can you put your cameras on so that we can take a photo? And the next question for Anand is, can games be used for education?
Yes, games can and are being used for education. Over the last several years, lots of companies are trying to use games to see how games can fit into various aspects of education. For example, at Byju's, we were looking to see how can we use games to teach language and to do math and science. We were using we did a project with Google for using gameplay to teach kids how to read in Indian languages and in English. Currently at Big Fat Phoenix Interactive, my present company, we're looking at how we can use games to build skills like financial literacy, how to do business, leadership, working in teams and stuff like that. Many famous games are being used also, like things like Civilization are used for teaching things like history and economics and development. Minecraft is used in a lot of classrooms for teaching a variety of things because Minecraft is extremely moddable and you can take Minecraft and kind of move it around, mix it around and modify it to suit whatever purposes you would like. So Minecraft has been used to teach all sorts of things from architecture and art and creative thinking to programming to even math. Lots of stuff is being used. So games are increasingly being used for teaching and I believe that in the future there will be a lot more you will see of the usage of games and play in formal education systems.
Okay.
So basically, the upshot is that I don't know if you guys will be lucky enough, but your juniors are definitely going to play a lot of games in their classroom.
Okay. Are video games unhealthy or healthy, Anand?
Is ice cream unhealthy or healthy? A little of it is healthy. Too much of it is unhealthy. It really depends, right? By default, video games are neither healthy nor unhealthy. It's just a thing that you do. It's a hobby, right? If you are using it for healthy reasons and you're kind of getting benefit out of it, then it is healthy. If you are being harmed by the video games that you play or the way that you play video games, then it's unhealthy, right? It's only a matter of how you apply it and what you get out of it. So that's what I'd say. If you're in class 8, class 9, you should understand just like anything else, too much excess of something might be harmful. It's better for you to kind of be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and talk to people, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, and see if the way that you're doing it is is working for you and is healthy or not. The other thing is also be aware of age things, like kids in particular age should not be playing games that are not meant for that age group, right? Which is what we do we have ratings for movies and we have ratings for television shows and stuff. you would not think. So that's where people like educators and parents need to get involved and be more aware. We have ratings for games. Game ratings are visible. It's mandatory and legally required for games to go through a rating process. So every game will tell you whether it is meant for which age group it is meant for. As long as we are following those guidelines and making sure that the consumption is healthy, there is nothing inherently unhealthy about video games. But I would just advise everyone to just kind of use your common sense and see what it's doing for you, right?
Yeah. And what are your favorite kinds of video games, Anand?
Oh, mine.
Yeah.
I enjoy all sorts of video games. I've been playing video games for a very, very long time. So currently I'm playing a bunch of things. I like games which have a lot of story in them. I'm a huge fan of story heavy kind of games. So I'm playing things like Fire Emblem. I'm playing The Legend of Zelda. I just completed Breath of the Wild on the Switch. I've been playing some really cool games on the on mobile, on Apple Arcade and stuff like that. I played a little bit of PUBG, but like I was really bad at it, so I kind of probably these guys would have sniped me very early. Some of you might have killed me, and I was very dejected and did not continue playing. I don't play too many competitive multiplayer games online anymore. But I enjoy strategy games. I enjoy games like Civilization. I enjoy role-playing games with a lot of story. I enjoy games with interesting puzzles. I was recently playing a really good game called Heaven's Vault, in which you play an archaeologist who's traveling all over and trying to decipher an alien language. So you find symbols. Just imagine you're an archaeologist in Egypt and you're finding all these things with carvings and engravings, and you're trying to piece together a language. That's what the game is, and it's really, really good. I really enjoyed that. It was a pretty beautiful game. I also enjoy some classics, Pac-Man, Super Mario Brothers, just fun games in Rayman, games in which you run around and jump around and like have some fun. I like games like that. Lots of games.
And finally, Anand, there is a question from the management. How can students maintain a proper balance and avoid addiction?
Addiction is an important issue to address, but I don't think that is necessarily addressed at the student level, right? It has to be looked at in terms of the home environment and the school environment and stuff around. It's something that needs to be addressed at a larger level than the responsibility does not lie purely with the student alone. Right? It comes from a lot of awareness. See, you have to look at any addiction. Why does any addiction happen, right? Any addiction happens because that person is somehow not able to perhaps control an impulse, right? If nobody is doing it in a wanton way or something. So it's not a matter of walking up to someone and saying, hey, you should not play so much. That will never work. It needs to come at it from a sensitive angle of understanding what that person is going through, making sure that that person is protected, and you look at it in a healthy and positive way of addressing any addiction, right? It's the only way you can do any sustainable progress there. So I think it's a lot on the parents and teachers. Be aware, understand, rather than saying, hey, this is what kids are doing, the kids are playing games. Look at what are they playing, what are they doing in the game. Is that an unhealthy activity or a healthy activity? Because sometimes kids are playing games for a long time, but they're doing really positive things. I'll tell you a story recently. There's a little bit of disturbance from someone's mic. You guys, yeah, it's gone now. There was a story recently of a bunch of kids playing. Sorry.
So you can go ahead.
Yeah, there was a story that surfaced recently on Reddit where there's a bunch of guys who were playing, I think, Sea of Thieves or Destiny. I can't remember the game. They were playing, Fortnite. Yeah, there were a bunch of teenagers playing Fortnite, all night. And they were playing because during the lockdown, and they were playing for a long time. And the story came from the parent, and what happened was they were playing, and they came across another random player, right? A player who was, not one of their group, a group of around 5 or 6 boys. They came across another player, and they just kind of got friendly, and they started playing with that kid. And that kid was included in their group, and they were playing with the kid. They were just talking and found out that that kid was a bit younger than them, around 11 years old. These guys were 15, 16. And then they found out that it was that 11-year-old boy's birthday that night. It was going to be his birthday, and he was spending his birthday alone, just by himself playing Fortnite. These guys just all threw him a birthday party in Fortnite, right? They took him out, they said, you come along, they helped him win a couple of games, they included him in the group, they gave him presents, they gave him loot, that's such a powerful social connection that happened in that online game, where a bunch of strangers just made a little boy's birthday special in an online space. Now, if you didn't know that that was happening, you'd look at it and say, oh, these guys are addicted, they're just playing games all the time. And you don't know what they're doing in the game. So I think as adults, as parents and educators, it's important for us to be aware of what's going on inside those spaces and bond with your kids. Most of the time the kids kind of rebel and move away from you is because they feel you don't understand what they do. And they're right, we don't. If adults took the trouble to understand what kids were going through, then the conversation becomes healthier. Then there's a chance that if something is slipping into some sort of harmful addiction, as grown-ups, we have a better chance of connecting with the child and then helping the child come out of any harmful behavior, right? Is how I would address it as school management and as parents.
Yeah, Anand, from the teacher's point of view, there is a question. Any simple technique which you can teach for the you could teach for the teachers to prepare short story or something animation to improve their teaching strategy?
Oh, I'm not an animation designer, so I'm not actually the best person to tell you about animation. But if you want to make a short story, there are lots of tools which help you make simple animation and stuff like that on mobile, which I would recommend you try. Just see, the only way that you can actually make stories is just to do it. Just get out there, make some drawings, put some stuff, and don't be afraid that it will be bad. Because it will be. The first time you do something, it will be bad. But you should do it, make it, then try again, and as you get better and better, you will be able to make stories. In terms of tools, I would recommend there are some video editing and animation apps available on Android and iOS, which may be able to help you unlock some storytelling templates, and it might give you some help. But I'm not an animation guy, so apologies for not having
no problem. Sabira Miss, over to you.
Yes, so all right. So we'll there are students here who are waiting to ask questions to you, sir. So I'm going to call one by one, and they'll be posting questions to you. And students, please don't unmute your mics. I'll be calling the student, and that particular student will unmute and ask the questions. Rest others, I'll definitely tell once the question session gets over. All right, so we'll start.
Questions about PUBG, no more.
All right. So we have the first student from class 12, Ehsan Faris.
Boys, before you ask the question, please put the camera on so that Anand can see you.
Faris, come on. Because we have so many students to ask, so please be fast.
Yes, teacher.
You may ask a question.
Sir, what are the problems you get while developing a game?
What are the problems in developing a game?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you asked?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, there are a lot of problems we face when developing games. Sometimes you start developing a game, and then after you develop it, you'll find out that your game idea was not that great, and it's not fun, and people don't like it. So you have to go back and try again. Sometimes we find that we made it too complicated. We were too ambitious. We put like all of these 100 features, and we find that we're not able to complete all of that in time. That's another problem that we commonly face. In game development. The other, like, lot of problems. Like, one of the biggest problems in game development is the competition in the market. Right? There are like thousands of games that that are made every month and that get released. Right? So how is your game going to be unique? Why would players want to play your game? So you have to make something really interesting, something really cool. Get it out there. So typically, competition is one of the problems that we face in game development. There are lots of challenges, but it's no different from the challenges you face in any field that you do, right? Success is about overcoming whatever challenge and problem that emerges in front of you, right? Right now, we're facing a problem because of the lockdown. We're not able to go to office, we're not able to kind of work with each other, just like how you guys are not able to go to school and hang out with your friends. So, how do we communicate and how are we able to overcome that problem? is what is going to define whether we are successful as a game development studio, right? So I hope that answers your question. There is not a problem. Sometimes game development seems like it's just one problem after the other. The reason we stay with it is because it's worth it. At the end of the day, once you make your game, the feeling is really nice.
All right. So we have his own sibling, Imdad Faris, to ask you a question. Imdad, do you have a question?
Teacher.
Yes.
He is not ready to ask him.
All right, fine. So we have another student who actually has developed a game by himself, and he has a lot of questions to ask you, sir. Hanif of class 11.
Hello, sir. My name is Hanif from class 11. I'm an aspiring game developer, and I'm working on a couple of games right now. I actually finished one game, and it's a very simple game, but I've done it.
Yeah, camera on, please, Hanif. Camera, please.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one is, I wrote my game using C#, but in your opinion, in the next 10 years, which programming language do you think is going to be the most viable for programming and game development?
It depends on which platform you're looking for, right? I would say C# is pretty solid because Unity is not going anywhere. Unity is only going to grow in the next 10 years. So I can definitely tell you that C# will not be a waste of time because C# is going to continue its prevalence for 10 years is a very long time. It's hard to predict, but for the next 5 years for sure, C# is a good investment.
Okay, right. And one more question, sir. What would be your advice for someone like me who does not have any exposure in the world? What would be your advice for me to be to get myself out there and to kind of advertise my game more?
I have no advice for you, mate. It should be learning from you because when I was at your age, I had not made any games. You have already made them. So I will ask you what is your advice rather than you telling me, rather than me telling you advice, right? What you're doing is fantastic. Just continue to make games. That is all you literally have to do. Because I tell you one thing about the games industry. When we hire, it's not really about the qualification that you have. If you have made something, that is 100 times more valuable than any degree in game development that we could have, right? In the absence of making anything, and degrees are good. If you go to university to learn games, that's really good because you get to work with a lot of interesting people and you get really opened up to a lot of different styles of game development and stuff like that. But making games, if you tell me you have a degree and you have not made any games, I'm not going to hire that person. So what you're doing is actually absolutely on track. You don't need any more advice. Just enjoy yourself, make the games you want to make. Everything will automatically fall into place. Because if you have the drive to make games, you will automatically learn whatever is required. You will go ahead, you will try to solve a problem, you will come up against a roadblock, then you'll be like, okay, I don't know this, let me solve that, right? And you go and learn it. So I'm actually delighted to hear that you're in your own games. I would love to play them. If you can just send me your game, I'd love to play it and give you some feedback on it.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
That's a good feedback for you, Hanif. Okay, so we have another student from class 11, Hanan. Yes, Hanan, you may ask a question.
Okay, Amin sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Morning, sir. I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome,
I'll
sir.
You let the students continue.
Okay.
I'm here till the end.
Yeah, he's waiting. The student is waiting. In between, we can have your session. Yeah, Anand, we have Amin sir with us.
Hi, Anand. Sorry, I just joined in between. It's a pleasure to have you with us. It's a great honor.
I saw you in the sample video that
Ashwin.
Abdul sent me, and it took me a minute to recognize you, man, like 1 whole minute. Then I was like, oh God, that's Ami. Yeah.
True. We all with the new haircuts, homemade haircuts, so we have to take an extra minute to recognize. So.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Anand, for sparing your time. I'm sure it's big, great opportunity for our students to meet with you and to learn from you. It's different experience altogether. We get to meet doctors and engineers and that type. But people creative like yourself. It's always hard find. Thanks so much.
It's a delight to be here, man. I'm really glad you guys are doing some amazing work. I'm just happy to be in any way that.
No, great. Definitely, we'd like to see you in person. Our students also, once all this lockdown settles down,
of course.
Great to invite you to our school and the rest of the team to see and interact with you a little bit more.
Yeah, happy to be there.
I mean, sir, from the management and teachers' point of view, Anand sir is a plus bonus or a minus for the students?
I can answer that very easily, but I won't.
It's a great privilege, really, Anand. Thank you so much. Thanks for being part of it and inspiring our students. Appreciate it, really.
Thank you, Amin sir. So, boys, so Anand, can we finish that answer?
I didn't get the question, so we're going to have to hear it again.
No, from the management and the teacher's point of view, Anand is a plus or minus?
So, to answer your own question as a teacher, I would like to tell about that.
Yeah,
gaming is like, it's not only an addiction where they could take in. It could be taken as a career also, like how a 11th student has created a game right away at this age. As sir mentioned, he didn't create at his age when he was class 11 also. So definitely this could be taken in a positive note as a good career, or maybe as a hobby also.
Yeah, it's a very growing career. It's a growing industry. We need more young people. There are a lot of jobs that are going to become available. So it is a very viable career for people to use. It's a multi-skill industry. So whatever your talents, you could kind of figure out some way to get into the games business. So it's definitely a viable career, and it's something that if kids love to do. But just you have to understand that if making games is not playing games, right? Making games is a lot of hard work. So making games is kind of learning how to draw or learning to do math or learning to do code. It requires a lot of discipline. You ask your friend who just